Last night was one of those extremely rare moments in sports history where you're going to remember exactly where you were and what you were doing when you got that alert that said Andrew Luck is retiring from the NFL. Andrew Luck, the Stanford University student who in 2012 was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts on their way to say adios to Peyton Manning. I remember that draft day so vividly because I was, like every other human being who watches football, really anxiously waiting for what they were going to do with Peyton Manning's contract. As we all know, Peyton Manning was let go by the Indianapolis Colts after his bizarre, horrible surgery situations. Peyton went on to play for the Indianapolis Colts, went on to play for the Denver Broncos. Obviously, we all know that. But Andrew Luck came into the season and dominated. This kid, well, I don't want to say kid, like he's not a kid, but he was a kid when he was drafted, came into the NFL ready to make history. And for the most part, he really did. A lot of people were still kind of processing what happened with Peyton Manning, myself included, because I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. This is Peyton, named after Peyton Manning. Right, Peyton? Anyway, yeah, so it's sad and bizarre at the same time to see somebody so young, so young, just kiss the game goodbye. And I mean, granted, he might come back in a year or two. You never know with the NFL, but there's so many things that went wrong with the Colts in terms of how they utilized Andrew Luck, the problems they saw with their offensive lines that they just never really did anything about. And when Chris Ballard came into the situation, things did change for the most part, but I mean, at the end of the day, these problems were still there. So you're kind of comparing and contrasting what is the benefit of putting in this quarterback who has a history of getting hurt with these same people that are potentially going to allow him to get hurt again. And I don't want to say allow because, I mean, your offensive line never wants the quarterback to get hurt. Peyton, are you chasing your tail? But it's just a bizarre situation in general. Very quickly, I wrote down some of Andrew Luck's most notable moments in history with the NFL, because as we all know, this guy was coming into the game completely ready, prepared, and more than prepared to become one of the best quarterbacks the NFL has ever seen, which makes the situation all the more heartbreaking. Andrew Luck threw for 4,374 yards as a rookie and remains the leading mark of any NFL rookie quarterback. 4,374 yards as a baby in the game. If that doesn't make you realize the talent that this man had in his arm, I really don't know what will. In Andrew Luck's career with the NFL, he had 20 game-winning drives. You want to know who only has more than that? Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and Matt Stafford. He's been named to the Pro Bowl 4 times, and last year he won the Comeback Player of the Year award because last year, the year before that, he was struggling again with being hurt. And listening to his farewell press conference was even more heartbreaking, not just because the images of him at the podium, completely an emotional wreck, are heartbreaking, but because every single person who watches football and who's paid attention to Andrew Luck since he got drafted has not only seen his potential, but they've also seen the struggles that he's gone through as a professional football player. He's been hurt numerous times. Sometimes he came back too early. I mean, he got hurt right before the season started, not just this season, but a few seasons ago as well. And that's heartbreaking as a quarterback, somebody that carries the football team, essentially somebody who the fans look at as the leader of a team, to not be there for the people that you dedicate your career to day in and day out. So these comments about people making fun of him essentially because he's mentally exhausted are completely uncalled for, because this team literally, I mean, he holds the weight of this team on his shoulders. And when you can't be there for your teammates, that is heartbreaking for any athlete who genuinely cares about their team. So comments like that are completely unnecessary, rude, uncalled for, and just not true. He didn't leave football because he's tired of rehabbing or because rehabilitation was too hard for him. He left football because football essentially let him down. I mean, statistics aside, things like this should really, really, really put into perspective the lifespan of an NFL football player. These men dedicate their lives and their bodies to the game, and yeah, they're getting paid all this money, but at the end of the day, there's so much more to life than football, especially because a lot of them retire before they turn 35. You think of all of these names in football who have had lives after football. Yes, you've got Tony Romo, who's had this great commentating career since he packed up his cleats for the Dallas Cowboys, but then you've got other Dallas Cowboys like Marion Barber, for example, who was a running back who was getting slammed by 300-pound men every single game. And what did their lives become after football? So just thinking about stuff like that really makes you put it into perspective. Don't be thinking about your fantasy football team during times like this. Don't be thinking about how selfish it is for a quarterback to let go of his team 2 weeks before the season starts. Don't be thinking about how your fantasy team is going to suck this season because your starting quarterback just retired. Your team was probably going to suck anyway if you were relying on your quarterback. But be decent human beings. Remember that football, at the end of the day, no matter how much we love it, no matter how much we revolve our weekends around it until February, it really is just a game. And there's so much more to life for these men than football. I sincerely hope things for Andrew Luck look up. I sincerely hope his life becomes everything he's wanted it to be, because I really don't think football gave him that life that he wanted or deserved. And I hope he finds happiness. I genuinely do. I think he's got so much more to offer to the world. Listening to him mic'd up, he seems like such an incredibly decent human being. So I'm sure he's going to want to go and do a lot to make a difference in any way that he can. But yeah, be decent, be nice to each other, and go hug a Colts fan today because they need it. Hi everybody. I wanted to very quickly show you all these very humble